All right, I have 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody in the audience and the viewing audience to the June 7th meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda is a roll call. I'd like to welcome new member Robert Cassidy. Vince Laria.
Yeah.
Joseph Lavalley.
Yeah.
Ann Raponi.
Here.
James Serboni.
Here.
I'm Andrew DeSantis, Chair. Member Nicholas Malason is absent. Next set, excuse me? I don't know what you're saying, Ann. What were you saying?
Did you introduce Toby? Yes, I know.
Yes, I did.
Yes, I know.
Yes, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
Approval of the minutes of May 3rd, 2017. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Voted in the affirmative unanimously. With the permission of the commission, I'd like to take the sixth item up first, because I know we have a few people in the audience for it, and that's a public hearing, notice of intent, DEP file number 061069. I don't believe the file number's been issued yet. Oak Island Road and Bridge Street Railroad Crossing Safety Improvements, the City of Revere. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I make a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? And we have several people from Camp Dresser McKee Smith, and will present on this. Okay. Why don't you pass them out to the members? I don't see a, let's straighten out the podium.
Thank you. All right. My name is Kara Johnston. I work with CDM Smith, and here with me is my colleague.
Hi, I'm Andrew Poya. I'm a wetland scientist at CDM Smith.
The City of Revere has asked CDM Smith to help them on this project. The Federal Railroad Administration is requiring the city to perform upgrades on the street in order to keep the railroad quiet zone at this crossing of Oak Island Road and Bridge Street. So currently, right now, the quiet zone will be maintained until August 1st, until upgrades are performed. So the minimum amount of upgrades required for this project include 100 feet of channelization devices to be installed on either side of the railroad, starting from the railroad gate, back 100 linear feet along Bridge Street and Oak Island Road. Because of...
Could you move the microphone a little closer to your mouth
Sure.
when you speak? There you go.
Thank you. So because of the size of the streets here, the city has decided to install a turnaround area as well in order to accommodate 3 additional parking spaces and a turnaround location for cars coming out of Hanson Terrace. So if I can point here on the map here. Andrew here can point out the wetland locations and what he found.
I delineated the wetlands in May, and there are 2 wetland lines that I flagged. Both of them were the limit of salt marsh. In that area, it was Phragmites and poison ivy. And then the upland in the area that work will occur is forested with red oak and black cherry, as well as Rosa multiflora and honeysuckle were the dominant species. And work will occur within the 100-foot buffer zone to salt marsh, as well as approximately 150 square feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the buffer zone to land subject to coastal storm flowage. The work within land subject to coastal storm flowage is within the roadway. And right there, it's mostly just the channelization, which, do you have that figure? It is,
So vehicles will travel down Oak
Why don't you bring the microphone with you so you can speak into the mic and people in the audience, so the viewing audience can hear you?
So vehicles will be able to turn out of Hanson Terrace here, turn around in this turnaround here, and travel back across the railroad tracks this way. We're allowing for an infiltration trench here. So runoff from the new parking area will travel through the vegetated filter strip into the stone trench for drainage.
May I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Is this a permanent turnaround, or is this just temporary while you're doing the work? I see, thank you.
permanent for those that couldn't hear.
Would you explain why that's necessary?
Sure, so these regulations are required by the Federal Railroad Administration. If the city does not install these channelization devices, the trains will have to sound their horns every time they pass through the tracks. So that's 67 trains a day on weekdays and 27 or so on the weekends.
Will you point where the railroad right-of-way is?
Sure, the railroad right-of-way is this line right here. So all work will be done outside of the railroad right-of-way.
Thank you. So you have to take a right coming out of Hanson Terrace to go left.
So this channelization is the minimum amount required by the Federal Railroad Administration, but the city has decided to add in the turnaround to accommodate for these homes here.
Any other questions?
No,
Member
I commend
Simone?
the city for going the extra mile on the turnaround for the residents, but interested in hearing what the abutters have to say.
You want to hear from any of the abutters? Anybody in the audience? Anybody in the audience wants to speak on this?
We did hold a neighborhood meeting just before this meeting, and we got about 10 residents
Okay.
present at that meeting.
Any other questions from the commission? Any other questions or concerns by anybody in the audience? What is the will of the commission on this? I've prepared an order of conditions.
I'll motion to close the
Entertain a motion
hearing
to close the public hearing and issue.
and issue, yes.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the original order of business. Public meeting, request for termination of applicability, 151 VFW Parkway, invasive plant species control and management plan by 151 Parkway LLC. care of Winstanley Enterprises LLC.
Good evening.
Introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm Greg Hockmuth, a wetland scientist from Williams and Sparagus, representing Winstanley Enterprises Incorporated. We filed a request for determination of applicability to conduct some invasive species management behind one of the shopping plazas. The shopping plaza is on the corner of VFW Parkway and North Shore Road, I believe. There's a big lot. Behind the plaza is a large area that's riddled with the monoculture of mainly Phragmites. And the police department's having issues with people taking refuge amongst the Phragmites. And the fear is that something bad will happen. There's a bus stop right there. The area is land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is why we filed a request for determination of applicability. What we're proposing to do is, it's going to take a while to knock down the species, but initially, we'd like to get in there and cut the Phragmites before July 15th, down to a height of about 4 to 12 inches. And that will allow new growth to come up, get rid of the old growth. And once the new growth comes up to a height of about 5 feet, it'll be treated with glyphosate. It's like a Roundup type herbicide using a backpack sprayer, and that should attack the Phragmites and get down into the rhizomes and eventually knock it down to a point where it's manageable. But more importantly, allow the police to do their job and look into the area. It's going to have to be done on a regular basis. We've proposed a monitoring plan too that goes on about 5 to 6 years. And we'd be happy to report back to the commission on the progress, how it's working out, and if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, we'd certainly be willing to do so. I submitted some photos that show the area. I'd be happy to pass this around. There's some aerial photos that show the area. Is it okay to pass this around? There's a fenced-in area now behind some residences where it's been managed and maintained, and it appears to be doing well. I'm not sure who's doing the work, but they're doing a really good job. We'd be looking to do something very similar. One challenge we are going to have is the area that we'd be targeting is a little damper than the area that's actively being maintained. So the initial cutting may not be able to be done with a deck mower. It might have to be done with a brush hog or hand-type tools. Following the initial cut and treatment, we're recommending that the cutting be done during the winter months when the ground is frozen and more solid. But we do think it will be successful. I'd be lying if I thought it was going to work 100%. Phragmites is some of the toughest invasives to treat. I'm sure you all know that.
Any questions for Mr. Hockman?
Yes, through the chair.
Member LaValle?
There was wasn't there some testing of method of getting rid of the Phragmites in and around between North Shore Road and Revere Street, the Kagans?
Yes.
Wasn't
Yeah,
there-
There's a salt marsh restoration project, which is actually taking the soil containing the Phragmites rhizomes and taking that out, and then bringing in new soil and planting salt marsh seed.
Are you aware of that effort? I was just curious if you knew if it worked.
I wasn't, but I mean, it sounds like a pretty major undertaking. Some of those rhizomes can go down 4 or 5 meters in areas that are drier than the area that we're talking about.
Yeah, the area that they did the salt marsh restoration is, well, this is formerly salt marsh too, but there's no salt water that comes into the site. The site where they did the restoration, the diurnal tide comes in and floods the area. So it appears to be working. Maybe former Superintendent of Public Works, John Barrett, who lives down there, can offer opinion, if he would, on whether the salt marsh restoration's working.
Yeah. Yeah,
Thank you, John.
I've seen it, it's working really well, but, as Andy stated, that's a totally different environment, and the method for treatment that's being proposed in the RDA is pretty common. And I read the invasive species control plan, and it seems consistent with other measures for an area like that. So the only thing I didn't notice was once the herbicide is applied, I didn't see any mention of signage, so people don't go in the area, because obviously people are living there.
Right, no, that's a good point, and, we'd be more than willing to put up signage and take whatever precautions are necessary to ensure that everybody's safety is protected.
Anything else for Mr. Hockman? I prepared a determination of applicability, a negative determination, and that the work described in the request is within an area subject to protection under the Act, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area. Therefore, the said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent. Do I have a motion to vote this?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Voted in the affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Well, I sent it on the other end. Greg, Mr. Cassidy at the end has it now. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, notice of intent, DEP File 06109. Again, file number hasn't been issued, 450 Revere Beach Parkway. Thank you. Revere Beach Boulevard, demolition of existing structure and construction of two-family dwelling, Christine McCarron. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open.
Second.
Motion by Vincent Loria, seconded by Joseph Lavalley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Go ahead.
Yep. Introduce yourself.
My name is Chris McCarron. I live at 450 Revere Beach Boulevard.
Speak into the microphone, Chris.
Sounds loud from here. Chris McCarron, 450 Revere Beach Boulevard. Thank you, everyone. The proposal, the 450 Revere Beach Boulevard is a single-family home that's in an AE flood zone. The request is to raise the existing structure above the 11-foot base flood elevation, to excavate the existing foundation, which is not compliant with current conservation code, install a new foundation that is compliant, and then to add 2.5 floors to that structure and convert it from a single-family home to a two-family home. And I have just a rendering of what it could potentially look like, if you want to see that. You want me to pass it around? Just the bigger. As you can see from the photos that I put in your packet, the existing structure interferes with the flow of groundwater. It captures it in the garage, where it has to be pumped out repeatedly whenever there's a rain. There's also impervious paving in front of the house and leading into the garage that further impedes the groundwater being absorbed. And there are only gutters on a portion of the house, and they just flow into the ground. The proposal doesn't change the footprint of the building, and it will improve the site because the new foundation will allow the groundwater to flow unobstructed. The impervious paving will be replaced by gravel or paving stone, And the living area will be above the 100-year water level. And the roof runoff will also be diverted into dry wells so that it doesn't just flow on the ground. And in addition, in the back, there are 3 other parcels that are part of this in the back, which are just overgrown with weeds and vines. And I'd like to just make that a planted area with garden and grass.
Any questions of Ms. McCarron?
Yes, I'm looking at the photograph of the boulevard itself, and it looks like there's a common driveway going to the back.
Correct.
Is that a split driveway between the 2 properties, or is it the White House on the?
Well, it's a right-of-way, shared right-of-way that 452 and 454 have granted so that I can get back to my property, but also it's used by 454 so that they can access their rear parking area.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the commission? You all received a copy of the correspondence from Mr. Lawrence Michelson, who's in the audience, and if he would like to speak, he's welcome to speak on this. Introduce yourself, Mr. Michelson.
Mr. DeSantis, my name is Lawrence Michelson, and I built 454 Revere Beach Boulevard according to all the specifications that was put upon us. And I'm very concerned about this house because there's a continuous flow of water that's being pumped out. And I'm afraid that at some point it's going to affect my building and also the building in front. I have the person that owns the building in front here also. I sent a letter to you, the commissioner, and I see you do have it. I wasn't prepared to bring copies to the other panel.
I distributed to the other members when I sent the packages out, so everybody has it.
Yes, you can. You may do that.
I did that already.
Oh, you did that? Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The proposed site is going to be a burden on a 2-family because that driveway is a private driveway shared actually between 3 people. The 3 houses, the one in the front, 450, I think it's 452 and 454 and 450. It's shared between the 3 of us. And as a matter of fact, I do the plowing. I pay for the plowing. Nobody seems to want to chip in. And sharing that driveway is kind of a problem. So I really I hope that the commission will take this all under consideration, that it is not meant to add a burden to that driveway. And I am concerned about the water flow that comes out of that building. I'm really surprised that Zebra gave them a variance to do anything there because it's right on the property line. And they have no access to the backyard. They can't get into the backyard from the private way. So there's several problems that I wish the commission would look at before making a decision. And much more than that, I can't add unless you want to ask me questions.
In regards to use of the driveway,
Yes.
it's not relevant in of itself, unless you can explain why it would be relevant to one of the protected interests under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Well, I was the one that repaved it. I spent money to repave it. And Tony, a guide at the time, claimed he was broke, he didn't have any money, and nobody wanted to chip in. But I was the one that rehabbed that driveway. And from that point on, I have been taking care of that driveway since I've been there, having it plowed and shoveled and so on and so forth. So beyond that, I don't think that it was designed to add any more than what is there already.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But where we can act, it either has to affect public water supply, private water supply, groundwater supply, land containing shellfish, fisheries, storm damage prevention, prevention of pollution, protection of wildlife habitat, or flood control. So if you can explain why it doesn't work in regards to one of those 9 protected interests, then it would really be of interest to us. But simply that it's a driveway that's got too much use in of itself is not something we can really consider in deliberations on deciding whether to issue this or not.
Well, from various cars driving over that, I'm sure that there is a certain amount of pollution that is dispensed on that driveway. I'm sure of that. And it does go into the backyard where I do
Now
have...
you are relating it, yes.
Where I do have gravel there.
Yes.
I was not able to put grass, and so I had to put gravel at a great expense there. And supposedly, that takes care of the water, and it goes into the ground. So that's the only thing I can come up with. But there is a certain amount of pollution, I would say, that comes from automobiles going up and down that driveway.
Would you like to respond to Mr. Michelson, Chris? Yeah, I don't want to be in the position of telling him what you're planning on doing to try and make it compliant with the Wetlands Protection Act. So if you just want to review everything you're doing with the property to make it compliant.
Well, I'm not, I can't really say anything to speak to the driving on the driveway piece of it, because obviously that's going to happen. We're going to, drive there. As far as the rest of it goes, as Larry mentioned, we do have a problem now with groundwater flowing into the house. And that's why I want to raise it and get it, because basically they built the garage below, even a small amount of rain fills up the garage. It's not a good design. It comes flowing down the driveway right into the garage. And, so I want to raise that so the garage is no longer below the level of all the other dirt, basically bring it up to the same level as all the other ground around it. So you'll just drive straight into the garage instead of going down into it. As far as the other, what I already said, that the basement is not going to be down as deep. It's going to have like pillars, so they'll be able to, flow. There won't be anything impeding the water. There'll be gravel instead of asphalt. So basically, the groundwater should be in a much better condition than it is now. That property, what right now has the potential to maybe cause problems for the neighbors, but I think the new structure is actually going to be better in that regard, and that's certainly our goal, is to do whatever you suggest, whatever the city suggests, to make sure that we're better neighbors than we are now, with just this non-compliant structure.
Yeah, their proposal contains openings in the foundation so water can flow through the building, like anything new on the building. I forget when we did your property, was that a requirement on your property?
There was grates put in there. I forget what you call them.
The smart fence?
Yeah.
They open and close.
Yeah, that's what's being proposed on this one.
That creates problems too. The wind is very cold.
Yes.
And the sand blows in there and it becomes dirty. I had to put in heaters in the garage, and it still doesn't overcome the coldness and the stuff.
Yeah, but they're there to allow the water to flood through, which is a federal requirement.
But it has.
And for your flood insurance, you need it.
Been there a year and a half, and we've had absolutely no water problem whatsoever. My concern is that they're further into the flood zone than we were.
Yes. Yeah, you're only partially in the flood zone, if I remember, because you're on the boulevard.
That does bother me. And it does bother me that the water does travel, and I'm just afraid that it could affect my property. Over the Memorial weekend, we happened to be there, and the pump was going crazy. It was a beautiful day, and the pump was going crazy, and water was blowing all over the place. And it concerns me. I'm frightened that something could happen to my foundation or to my building. And that's my concern.
Other than it being a two-family, if it's built to the same standards that yours was built to, wouldn't it be an improvement over what's
I don't
it?
think it's going to help them one single bit, to be honest with you, because they're deeper into that flood area than I am. My flood area was, I think, approximately maybe 10 feet, something of that nature, at which point I had to put in a pervious concrete floor in the garage. But again, knock on wood, we haven't had any trouble whatsoever there. So I'm pleased with how the foundation was put in, and I'm pleased so far. But I am concerned where they are further back into the flood area, that whatever they do over there, unless they do something miraculous, I think they're going to have a problem. And it isn't the water from the rain, it's groundwater that's coming up. They had dug a hole on the side of the building to see what the footing was like, and I happened to walk over there and look at it, and the water was right up to the ground level. So there is a problem over there with water, definitely. And as a matter of fact, when I had a test bore done over there, we have high tide and we have low tide. So the water in low tide is low, and of course...
Yeah, it's affected by the ocean, for sure, yeah.
They seem to have a problem over there with water. So whether or not they comply with all the rules and regulations that I did, whether that will solve it or not, I hardly think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to solve it, but it will comply with the regulations.
Well, it might comply, yeah.
Yeah, which is all we can request.
Well, what about the hazardous situation to my property?
When you say hazardous,
If in the event that they can't solve the water situation and it becomes worse for the two-family house there,
well, if you experience damages, then it's certainly your right to request corrective action from the party that caused the injury.
yeah. Well, I really would like to avoid that if possible. I'd like everything that can be done to make sure that whatever they're going to do isn't going to affect my property. Because I spent a lot of money over there putting that building up, and there was a lot of money spent on a tank and underground system where all of the gutters, all the gutter water flows down to the pipes and into a tank. And
Would
from
you
there,
address
it
that,
sinks
Chris?
into the ground.
Sorry?
Would you address that on your property?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's our...
Well, that's what I'm asking is...
Exactly,
To
yeah.
say exactly what you're doing on the property, so Mr. Michelson knows nothing less than was required on his property is being
Absolutely.
required on your property.
Absolutely.
And what you submitted.
Well, and it's possible that it won't be perfect, but I think we can agree that it will be better than what we have today.
To us, the perfect situation would be everything down there gets torn down and nothing ever gets built. It's a barrier beach, it's supposed to move back and forth, it's supposed to naturally control flooding, but we know that's not a realistic approach to Revere
Well, I think
Beach.
there is a way of possibly diverting the water by putting in a system where the water is diverted from the building altogether, from the foundation, but it's got to go way back into their property, and it's got to go over the sewer line.
Yeah, plans show cisterns like you have on your property.
Yeah.
Same thing we required on yours is required on hers.
Yeah, I'll have that.
So anyway, it's up to you people.
Yep.
You're going to make the
Yeah,
decision.
I want to give you a chance to speak since you already
Ask you to,
raised issues.
protect us as much as you can.
Okay, anybody else would like to speak on this? Go right ahead. Name and address, please.
My name is Valentina Patterson. It's 452 Revere Beach Boulevard. My house right in front of them. And my house, unfortunately, not as new as Larry's house. My house was built in 1926. And since then, we did have a few flood experience when the old owner were there and didn't take care of their water. This existing building is one-story building. It's not so heavy. And the water table in that area up to that building floor, the first floor. Whatever going upper, it goes in their building. This is why they pump it out all the time. But if they'll put something heavier than it is now, the water table will change and will go down all the way. Not only my house and Larry's house, but the next house as well. We're all gonna have water in our basements, and you're supposed to know it as you're an engineer, I believe. So that's not absolutely, possible to do that. They can build whatever they want, the same story, one story, perfect, take that water out to the river, absolutely excellent, but nothing more heavy than it is now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else would like to speak? Any further questions from the commission? I prepared an order of conditions for this project. What is the will of the commission?
I'll motion to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. There's a 10-day appeal period? The first step is not to go to court. The first step is to appeal to DEP. There's a process for doing that. There's a cost for doing that. So if you want to contact me, I can get you the paperwork. I don't know if I've got any with me right here. If you want, I can deliver the paperwork to you. Okay, I can deliver it on a Friday. So who should I bring it to? Thank you.
I would join Valentino also.
Okay.
I have no objections if they wanted to rehab what they have. And, fix it up so that it
All right, who should I bring the paperwork to? To you, Valentina? Well, I'll bring it to one person. 452? Okay. Are you home during the day? Okay. Friday, you'll be home during the day. Okay, so I'll probably be down about 9 o'clock in the morning. Is that all right? Okay. I'll bring the instructions, I'll bring you the paperwork, and show you what you got to do. Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, notice of intent, DEP File 061069, 63 Union Street, construction of a two-family dwelling, Greg Antonelli. We have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Second, yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Voted in the affirmative. about that. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Eric Bradnisi of Engineering Alliance. I'm here on behalf of Greg Antonelli. So we're here to present the project at 63 Union Street to you. The property is located between Union Street, Garofalo Street, and Temple Street. This property was recently subdivided, and it went to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a variance that was granted for lot size of the subdivided lots. What we're proposing to do on the newly subdivided lot is to construct a two-family dwelling that is currently located within a Zone AE floodplain with base flood elevation 10. The resource area is land subject to coastal storm flowage, and as currently constituted, the grading on the site is just below the elevation 10. So what we have proposed to do is around the building, raise the existing grade to have all adjacent grades around the building be elevation 10.5 and effectively remove the building from the floodplain. In regards to the actual building itself, there's two access driveways off of, we'll also have standard utilities, type 1-inch type K copper water and a 6-inch PVC sewer service that connect from the building out to the utilities in Garofalo Street. And all stormwater generated by the new building will be captured into a series of dry wells at the rear of the building. So again, the resource area is land subject to coastal storm flowage, and currently there are no performance standards for that. So we will be just designing to capture the roof runoff with the 500-gallon dry wells. And it's just a standard two-family building. And again, like I said, it's on the recently subdivided lot. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them.
I'm just handing out the revised plan.
No problem.
Any questions for the proponent, for the applicant? What they're doing is they're raising the grade, just like they did with 205 the Parkway, which are allowed to do. And doing so makes it so it doesn't require flow-through openings. But one of the things that I put in the order of conditions, and I spoke to Rick about this, is that no new impervious paving be allowed.
Yeah, so, yeah, I believe the driveways there'll be like some sort of impervious stone or gravel driveway as well.
Yeah, that's what Rick said.
Okay, perfect.
Engineering lines have used that on other projects.
Yep, absolutely.
This is right across from the Matola Post. To give you an idea where it is. So any questions for Mr. Bradnisi? We have a motion?
I'll make a
To
motion.
close an issue?
I'll second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Vote in the affirmative. Okay, I know Rick told me he was going to be here, but it doesn't look like he's going to make it. So-
Yeah, unfortunately, he was in Boston for another hearing, and I actually just talked to him. He's been held up down there, so.
So you're also going to speak on Bellevue Street?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Would you like to do that now, or I can wait till?
Yeah, we're all set with this.
Okay.
Orders being signed, so if you want to speak on Bellevue
Sure.
Street.
So this project is 17 Bellevue Street. We're here on behalf of Jamie Russo. And property is located at the end of Bellevue Ave. It's located at the end of Bellevue Ave, and we've been asked to come before the board just to clarify some work that was done out there. It's our understanding that there's been some work done in the vicinity of the floodplain out on the property, although we haven't had a full topographic survey done at this point, so we don't know if the work has been done within the floodplain or not.
Eric, let's explain where Bellevue Street is, because they probably don't know.
Okay.
As you're coming from, on Revere Street from North Shore Road,
Yeah,
it's the last right. It's a little short street, right before you cross over the tracks.
correct.
And this property is at the end of it. The street is laid out for, I don't know how long, maybe 400 feet, if that.
That's about right. Yep.
And it's paper street beyond that for an additional 250 feet or so.
That's
The
correct.
property's 250 feet deep.
Right, and this property is located right at the end.
And they've been to site plan review for 8 townhouses and 2 separate units. And they've been to city council for a special permit, which
Correct.
was granted.
Correct.
So they still got a bit of a road to hoe.
That's
They
right.
started work there, the end of the properties and whatnot. I'll leave it to you now.
Okay, thanks. So, yeah, as Mr. DeSantis had said, some of the work that has been done out there, and it's our understanding that some of the work has been done in the vicinity of the floodplain. Unfortunately, at this time, we haven't had a full topographic survey done to verify where the actual limit of the floodplain is on the property. We've commissioned Boston Survey to do that full topographic survey. And as, to my knowledge, I believe, we'll have it done within the next week or two. We'll have all the information. Just so you know, ultimately, based on the proposed work that, we're looking to do, we will require some work within the limits of the floodplain. So it is our full intent to, once we get all this information, to come back and present, to submit a notice of intent to the board, come back and present to you guys, if possible, at the next hearing. But I know, like I said, at this moment, we unfortunately don't have the information on that topography, but as soon as we get it, we'd like to submit it to you and show, where all our work is being done relative to that floodplain in the area.
So that brings us to the question of when our next meeting is going to be. First Wednesday in July is July 5th. Would we be able to get a quorum for that? It's the day after the 4th of July. What's the will of the commission?
I'll be here.
You'll be here? Ann?
I will also.
You won't?
I'm sorry,
You will or won't?
I can't hear you.
Will you be available for July 5th?
Oh, July 5th, for a site survey?
No, for a regular meeting of Conservation Commission.
Okay, and what day is that fall on?
It's a Wednesday. It's our typical first Wednesday of the month. It's the day after 4th of July,
And what time of day?
7 o'clock, just like usual.
I believe I'll be available.
Okay, good,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Joseph? Vincent? Toby? Okay, we got a date then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric? Okay, and you're all set, Eric.
Do you need these in regards to the,
Yes,
Okay,
I would
perfect.
like the return receipts. And I'll get these copied and file, and I'll send it to Rick.
Awesome, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay. John, did you have anything for the board? No. Okay, we're here, that's why I asked. Yep, you're welcome. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Adjourned.